96 degrees outside, 72 inside, no air conditioner, no fan, no electricity in the house at all. This Amish farmhouse in Lancaster County is doing something the power company hopes you never figure out. Mary Stoltzfus is rolling out pie dough in her kitchen on the hottest afternoon of August, and the butter stays firm under her hands. Outside, the thermometer nailed to the north side of the barn reads 96 in the shade. Inside, the air is cool enough that she does not even break a sweat. That breeze moving through her screen door is not an accident. That coolness is not luck. Mary's husband Amos learned this from his father. His father learned it from his father, the man who built this house in 1891. 3 generations, same methods, they still work today, and not one of them costs a single dollar to run. My name is Eli. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you 7 specific things the Amish do to keep their homes 20 degrees cooler than the air outside without a single watt of electricity. And before you tell me your house is not built like an Amish farmhouse, listen to me. Every one of these works in a regular home built between 1940 and 1980. Most of you watching live in exactly that kind of house. I will show you how to use each one as we go. Researchers at Penn State and Ohio State have quietly studied these methods for years, and what they found should embarrass the entire air conditioning industry. So, stay with me, because the 4th trick is the one that works in almost any older house, including yours, and it is the one nobody ever tells you about. The first trick starts not inside the house at all, but in the dirt beneath it. No matter how hot the August sun blazes overhead, the temperature of the deep earth, 6 to 8 feet down, holds steady at 52 to 55 degrees all year round. The Amish understood this geothermal constant long before geothermal was a word in any green building catalog. When a young couple builds a home, the older men of the district walk the property with them, sometimes for days, watching where the cold air pools before sunrise and finding where the groundwater runs closest to the surface. A house built over a deep stone cellar dug into that cool earth becomes a natural refrigerator from the ground up. The cellar walls, built of fieldstone gathered from the property and mortared with lime, breathe slowly, releasing the cool of the deep earth up into the house through floor grates. And the cellar is not empty. It holds hundreds of jars of canned goods on wooden shelves against the cool stone, crocks of fermenting sauerkraut, barrels of apples buried in straw, bins of root vegetables, and in many homes a spring box, a stone trough with cold spring water running through it. The Stoltzfus cellar has a spring that was tapped when the house was built, delivering 53-degree water at about 2 gallons a minute through a trough that runs along one wall, past crocks of milk and butter, and out a drain into the creek. That constant flow of cold water keeps the cellar not just cool but humid, and that matters, because humid, cool air carries more cooling power than dry air. When it rises through the floor grates, it brings real cooling capacity up into the house with it. In the Stoltzfus house, there is a grate set into the pantry floor right above the coldest corner of the cellar. On the worst days of summer, Mary opens that grate at 5 in the morning and leaves it open until 10, and a column of 55-degree air rises up through the kitchen like a waterfall flowing in reverse. By noon, the kitchen is sitting at 72, while the thermometer outside climbs past 95. This is not theory, this is physics, and it has been working in Amish homes since before this country existed. Now here is how you use it. If you have a basement, especially one built before 1975 with a real concrete or stone foundation, you already own the coldest room in your house. Open the basement door early in the morning, put a simple box fan at the top of the stairs facing up into the living space, and you will pull that cool basement air upward through the house the same way the Amish do through their grates. Do it before the day heats up, then shut the door at midday to trap the cool. It costs you nothing but the habit. The second trick is the way the house sits on the land. Drive through any Amish settlement and you will notice something a tourist never registers. Every farmhouse runs its long axis east to west, and the wide porches face south or southwest. This is not for looks. It is a calculation refined over generations, and it is built on the simple fact that the summer sun rides high overhead while the winter sun stays low. Think about where the sun actually goes. In summer, it rises in the northeast, climbs high into the southern sky, passes almost directly overhead at noon, and sets in the northwest. In winter, it rises in the southeast, stays low across the southern sky, never climbing more than about 35 degrees above the horizon at midday in Pennsylvania, and sets in the southwest. The deep eaves on an Amish house, which reach 3 to 4 feet out from the wall, are cut to throw a shadow that completely covers the south-facing windows from late May through early September when the sun is high. But in winter, when the sun is low and the warmth is welcome, that same low light slips right under the eaves and pours through the same windows. It is passive solar design that predates the term by centuries, with no moving parts and no maintenance. The porch does its own work too. A deep Amish wraparound porch, 10 to 12 feet across, creates a buffer of shaded air between the hot outside and the cool inside. The air on that porch can be 20 degrees cooler than the open lawn just 30 feet away, and that cooled air is what gets drawn into the house through the open windows. Bishop Eli Miller of Holmes County, who died in 2017 at 94, used to tell young couples that the porch was not a luxury, but a necessity, and that a house built without a deep porch would torture its family for 100 years. He built his own house in 1946 on a small rise, porch facing southwest to catch the summer wind, and his great-grandchildren still live in it today, still without air conditioning, still comfortable through the hottest Ohio summers. If your house has a porch, or even a simple awning on the south or west side, the same rule applies. And if it does not, a cheap exterior shade or a wide overhang built over your sunniest windows does exactly what the Amish eave does. Shade the glass before the sun gets to it, and you stop the heat before it ever enters the house. One sheet of plywood as an awning over a west window, angled to block the high summer sun but let the low winter sun through, will do more for an upstairs bedroom than a window unit running all afternoon. The third trick is the trees, and the Amish choose them with extraordinary care. You will almost never see an evergreen on the south or west side of an Amish home because an evergreen blocks the welcome winter sun. Instead, those sides are planted with deciduous hardwoods, sugar maples, and white oaks, which leaf out fully by mid-May, throw dense shade all summer, then drop their leaves in October to let the winter sun back through. A single mature sugar maple placed 40 feet off the southwest corner of a house can cut that home's cooling load by as much as 30%, according to studies done by the United States Department of Energy back in the 1990s. The Amish did not need a federal study to tell them this. There is a particular oak on the Yoder farm outside Berlin, Ohio, that Jacob Yoder planted in 1876 to shade the kitchen, and that oak is still doing its job 148 years later, shading the very same windows. On the north and east sides, you will find dense evergreens, but those are not for cooling. They break the bitter winter wind off the open fields, and in summer they funnel the cooler north breezes toward the house. If you own your home, this is the cheapest long-term cooling you will ever buy. A young shade tree on your southwest corner costs $40 and pays you back every summer for the rest of your life. Now the fourth trick, the one I promised you, the one almost nobody outside the community knows, the summer kitchen. The kitchen is the hottest, hardest working room in any house. So in the older Amish homes, the cooking is moved out of the house entirely from May through September into a separate room or small building called a summer kitchen, with its own roof, thick walls, and windows on opposite sides for crossbreeze. The wood-fired cook stove sits out there, and all the heat from baking bread and canning tomatoes and rendering lard stays in that separate space and never touches the main living quarters. Sarah Beachy, outside Sugar Creek, still uses the summer kitchen her grandfather-in-law built in 1908. From May to September, she does every bit of her cooking out there, and her main kitchen inside the house sits cold and unused, windows shut against the day. The result is that her living spaces never rise above 76 degrees, even on the worst day of July, because no cooking heat is ever let into them. Here is your version. You do not need a separate building. You need to stop heating your house from the inside during the cooling season. Move your summer cooking to a grill, a slow cooker, or a microwave out on the porch or in the garage. Do your oven baking early in the morning or after dark, never in the heat of the afternoon. Every degree of heat you do not create inside is a degree your house does not have to lose. The Amish figured out 300 years ago that the cheapest cooling is the heat you never make. The fifth trick is the windows, and they are not the sealed, double-paned units in a suburban house. They are old, double-hung wooden sash windows, and the way they are worked is the whole point. A double-hung window opens from the top, from the bottom, or both at once. When the air outside is hotter than the air inside, the Amish housewife closes the bottom sash and opens the top, so the hottest air near the ceiling escapes while the warm outside air is kept from flooding in at floor level. When the air outside turns cooler in the early morning and the late evening, she reverses it, opening the bottom to let the cool in and closing the top to trap it. This happens several times a day, every day, all summer, and it is one of the first skills a mother teaches a daughter. A 9-year-old Amish girl can feel the direction of the draft on her cheek and adjust the sashes without being told. Here is the thing. If your house has any window that opens from both top and bottom, you already have this tool. And even with a plain single opening window, the principle holds. Open the windows on the cool, shaded side of the house low, and the windows on the hot side high, and you create a current that pulls cool air in and pushes hot air out. The single most common mistake people make is leaving every window open all day. You do the opposite. You close the house up tight by mid-morning to trap the night's cool, and you open it wide again only once the evening air outside drops below the air inside. Managed that way, a house breathes like a living thing. The sixth trick is in the walls themselves, and modern builders have almost entirely forgotten it. Traditional Amish homes have very thick walls, 2 feet or more in the old houses, built of stone, brick, or heavy timber with thick plaster on both faces. That mass works like a flywheel. It soaks up heat slowly through the day and releases it slowly at night. In the middle of the hottest week of the year, the inside face of a thick stone wall might read 68 degrees, while the outside face, baking in the sun, reads 130. The wall swallows an enormous amount of heat before any of it reaches the inside, and by the time it does, the cool night air is already pulling it back out. This is called thermal lag, and a good stone house can have a lag of 12 to 15 hours, which means the hottest the inside ever gets is the middle of the night, exactly when the windows are open and the cool air is carrying it away. A modern stick-framed house with fiberglass insulation has a thermal lag of about 30 minutes, which is why it feels hot the moment the sun hits it. You cannot rebuild your walls in 2 feet of stone, but you can add mass where it counts. Heavy curtains, brick or tile floors left bare to the night air, even jugs of water in a sunroom, all add thermal mass that slows the swing. And the single biggest thing you can do is block the sun from ever hitting the wall in the first place with shade and trees and awnings, so the mass you do have stays cool. So here is what I want you to do with all of this. Everything I have pulled out of these communities, every method, every old technique from this channel is gathered in one place in the description below. It is called the Amish Home System. Now stay right here, because the last trick is the one that turns a hot upstairs bedroom into a cool one, and it is the part I built this whole video around. The seventh trick solves the problem everyone thinks is impossible. Heat rises, so how do you keep an upstairs bedroom cool? The Amish turn conventional wisdom on its head. The upstairs of a traditional farmhouse is built with very high ceilings, 10 to 12 feet, with windows set at the top of those high walls as well as at the bottom. This creates what physicists call the stack effect. Hot air rises and pours out the high windows while cooler air is pulled in through the low ones. Combine that with the cool air rising from the cellar grates below, and you get a continuous, gentle current flowing through the whole house, pushing heat out the top while pulling cool in from the bottom. In the Stoltzfus house on a typical August night, the upstairs bedrooms drop from 78 degrees at sunset to 64 by sunrise, just from this air movement. The children sleep under light cotton sheets and often pull a quilt over their feet by morning, because the cool settling in gets almost chilly. Many older homes amplify this with a cupola, a small louvered structure on the roof peak that acts as a chimney for the whole attic. The cupola on the Yoder farm, built in 1909, still pulls 2,000 to 3,000 cubic feet of hot air an hour out of the attic on a sunny day, just from the pressure difference between inside and out. Without it, that attic would hit 140 degrees by mid-afternoon and bake the bedrooms below. With it, the attic stays within 10 degrees of the outside air. Your version is simple and cheap. If you have an upstairs window and a downstairs window, open the high one and the low one and let the stack effect do its work. Better still, put a fan in an upstairs window blowing out, not in the evening. It exhausts the hot air that collected all day and pulls cool evening air up through the whole house from below. And if your attic is roasting your bedrooms, the cheapest fix in the world is a gable or ridge vent that lets that trapped heat escape instead of pressing down through your ceiling all night. There is one more piece of the old system worth seeing because it is the closest thing to magic the Amish have: the spring house. A spring house is a small stone building built right over a flowing spring, with the cold water running through a stone trough inside. Mary Stoltzfus has one about 30 yards from her kitchen door. The water comes up out of the ground at 53 degrees and runs through the trough past crocks of milk and butter and cheese, then back out into the creek. Inside that spring house, even on a 95-degree day, the air stays around 55 degrees. It is a walk-in refrigerator that needs no electricity and no maintenance, and it has been working for hundreds of years. On the very hottest afternoons, Mary walks down to fetch a pitcher of cold milk for the children, and she lingers a few minutes in the cool stone interior, letting her own body temperature drop before walking back up. Elderly members of the community spend the worst hours of a heat wave in there, sitting on a wooden bench with their Bibles in the cool, dim light. There is no air conditioning anywhere in the Amish world, but the spring house comes remarkably close. And here is a trick you can use today even without a spring. Mary fills a shallow ceramic basin with cold water and sets it in front of an open window in the kitchen. As the breeze passes over the water, evaporation drops the temperature of the air coming into the room by another 5 or 6 degrees. That is the exact same principle as a commercial swamp cooler, done with nothing but a basin of water and an open window. A wet sheet hung in front of an open window does the same thing. It works best in dry air, which is part of why so many Amish communities settled where the summer humidity stays moderate. Water does more work in an Amish home than most people would ever guess. Beyond the spring house, there is usually a buried cistern that catches rainwater off the roof, and because that tank sits underground, the water comes out of the tap at about 60 degrees even in the middle of July. An Amish family bathing in cistern water on a hot evening is essentially taking a cool shower with no refrigeration at all, and the evaporation off damp skin afterward drops body temperature for an hour or two. Children take multiple cool baths during the hottest weeks, partly for washing and partly as a deliberate cooling strategy. The mother fills a galvanized tub in the late afternoon, the children wash off the day's dust and sweat, and they come out cooled and ready for the evening chores. You can do the same thing tonight. A cool shower or even a basin of cold water on the wrists and the back of the neck before bed drops your core temperature enough to fall asleep on a hot night without touching a thermostat. And then there is the ice. The Amish harvest ice from their ponds in the dead of winter, cut into blocks with hand saws, and pack it into an ice house, a small building often dug partway into a hillside, with thick walls packed with sawdust or straw. The ice lasts well into the following summer, sometimes all the way through August. Mary keeps an ice house behind the barn, and she uses that ice to make ice cream on summer Sundays, to chill drinks, and to keep food cold in a wooden ice box in the kitchen. The ice box is an insulated wooden cabinet with a block of ice on top and shelves below. As the ice melts, the cold air sinks down through the food, and the meltwater drains into a pan emptied daily. It works almost exactly like an electric refrigerator, and it has been working in that same form since the 1850s. The roof matters too. Most Amish homes wear a light-colored standing seam metal roof that reflects the sun instead of soaking it up. A dark asphalt shingle roof on a summer day reaches 160 degrees and radiates that heat straight down into the attic. A light metal roof under the same sun might only reach 110, a 50-degree difference you feel in the bedrooms below. If you are ever replacing a roof, a light color is the cheapest air conditioning you will ever buy, and a radiant barrier stapled up under the attic rafters costs a few $100s and cuts the heat coming down through your ceiling dramatically. And in Lancaster County, you will still find sleeping porches, screened second-floor rooms on the cool north or east side where the family moves their mattresses in July and sleeps in the open night air until September drives them back in. Sleeping on a screened porch on a Pennsylvania summer night, with the temperature dropping to 62 by 3 in the morning and a steady breeze on your face, is one of the most pleasant things a person can experience, and almost no modern American ever has, and the bedding matters as much as the porch. The Amish sleep on mattresses stuffed with cotton or wool, materials that breathe and wick moisture away from the body, not the foam mattresses that fill modern bedrooms and trap heat against you all night. A thin linen sheet and a light cotton coverlet on a mattress that breathes is exactly the right combination for sleeping comfortably in the heat. You do not need a sleeping porch to use that lesson. Switch to cotton or linen sheets in summer, lose the heavy synthetic bedding, and you will sleep cooler the very first night. And none of these tricks would matter if the Amish fought the heat the way we do. They do not. They live with the rhythm of the day instead of against it. Their workday in summer starts before sunrise, around 4:30 or 5, when the air is coolest and the hardest labor gets done in those cool morning hours. By the middle of the day, when the heat peaks, the family is resting in the shadiest part of the house, eating a light meal, conserving water and energy. The afternoon is for light work in the shade. Then, as the sun drops, they go back out for the evening chores. By the time the temperature hits its worst in the middle of the afternoon, the Amish family is in the coolest part of the house, while the rest of America is fighting through the heat at a desk under failing air conditioning. Their schedule is not just more efficient, it is more sensible for the human body, which evolved to handle exactly this kind of pattern. There is one more thing the land itself does, and the Amish who built these farms in the 1800s knew it. A pond near the house creates its own pocket of cooler air, especially in the evening. When the water releases the heat it absorbed all day slowly, and the breeze passing over it picks up both moisture and a real coolness. The old builders dug their ponds upwind of the house, in the direction of the prevailing summer breeze, so that cooled air would drift toward the porch and the open windows. And those same ponds gave them their winter ice. When ice harvesting time came in the dead of winter, families gathered at the larger ponds and worked together for days. The men cutting and hauling the heavy blocks with saws and tongs, the women bringing hot meals, the older children helping with the hauling. By the end of a week, every ice house in the district was full, and the community had guaranteed itself another summer of cold storage. None of it would work alone. The ice is too heavy to harvest single-handed, the spring house is too big to build without help, the cellar is too deep to dig without neighbors. The Amish understand that comfortable summer living takes not just the right building but the right community, and they have kept both. There are stories told in these communities that carry the practical wisdom forward. Bishop Eli Miller, before he died, used to talk about the heat wave of 1936, when Ohio temperatures climbed past 110 for 2 solid weeks. He was 12. He remembered his mother filling buckets with spring water and setting them in front of every open window with damp sheets hung over them, a homemade evaporative cooler that pulled the temperature of every room down a few degrees as the breeze moved through the wet cloth. He remembered the family sleeping on the cellar floor for 3 nights when the air outside would not drop below 90 even at midnight, the whole family carrying their bedding down the stone stairs into the one part of the house the heat could not reach. He remembered his father wrapping wet burlap around the milk cans to keep them from spoiling on the wagon ride to the cheese factory, the evaporation off the wet cloth keeping the milk cold for miles in 100-degree heat. And he remembered the older men gathering at the general store to share strategies, the women coordinating their canning so no 2 households were building big fires on the same hot day, the whole community pulling together to make sure no one, especially the elderly and the very young, came to harm. That heat wave killed thousands of people across the country. In Eli Miller's community, not a single person died, and only a few suffered any heat illness at all. The thick walls, the deep cellars, the spring houses, the cooperative habits, all of it was enough to carry them through the worst the era could produce, and they remember it with a quiet pride. And here is why this matters to you right now. When the power goes out across a region in a summer storm, as it does more and more often, the modern family is thrown into a crisis they have no skills to handle. They cannot cool their house, they cannot keep their food, they cannot sleep. Within a day, they are sweltering in dark, hot rooms, throwing out spoiled food, lining up at emergency cooling centers. The Amish family notices almost nothing because they had no power to lose. Their cellar is still cool. Their spring house is still cold. Their porch is still shaded. Their life goes on uninterrupted while their neighbors struggle to cope. So let me leave you with what to do this weekend in the house you already own. Open your basement and pull that cool air up in the morning, then close the house tight by mid-morning to trap it. Shade your south and west windows before the sun hits the glass, with awnings now and trees for the long run. Stop making heat inside during the day, move the cooking out, and bake before dawn. Work your windows like the Amish do, low on the cool side and high on the hot side, opening up only when the evening air drops below the air inside. Set a basin of cold water in front of a breezy window. Put a fan in an upstairs window blowing out in the evening. None of it costs more than a box fan and a little attention, and together it can drop your house 10, 15, 20 degrees without touching the thermostat. Jacob Yoder planted that oak tree in 1876. He never met his great-great-grandchildren. But every summer afternoon, when they sit on that porch in the shade of his tree, he is still taking care of them. That is what these methods really are. Not tricks, not hacks, a way of looking after the people who come after you. The Amish never stop practicing the old ways, and as the summers get hotter and the grid gets shakier, the wisdom they kept may turn out to be worth more than anyone outside their community ever realized. The question I will leave you with is this: when the next heat wave comes, and it is coming, what will you have built for the people sitting on your porch? Tell me in the comments what your grandparents did to stay cool before air conditioning and what state you are in, because I read every one and your stories are how I find the next thing to track down. And if this gave you back something worth keeping, subscribe and stay with us, because there is a whole community here recovering what our grandparents knew and our generation almost let go. Next time, I am traveling to Lancaster County to document how the Amish keep ice frozen in an underground room from January clear through August with no electricity at all, using nothing but straw, sawdust, and one thing you would never expect. Until then, go shade a window. Go open that basement door. Your grandparents knew exactly what they were doing,